dependability is always in style. We're so glad you've joined us today. It's a crazy world we're living in, folks. We talk politics here. We talk education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And we're just interested in sharing with you some really good things that are happening, some great people in our community, so you can get a sense of what's taking place. But you know what? I love that song that Mark Lowry does as the bumper music opening my show. Amazing. Some things never change, and we often think, oh man, some things never change. But this is Some Things Never Change. God's love for us never changes, and how unique that is. Also, you can catch us on Spotify, on Facebook, on YouTube. If you want to listen at your leisure, you can catch us obviously on KXEX 1550 AM, 4 o'clock on Saturdays, and Sundays at 6 o'clock. Also, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, Good News with Larry Powell. Nothing but good news stories. We'd love to have you join us. You can also catch that on Spotify, and if you're taking a walk someplace, put your headphones on and listen to the good news. Hey, we've got a special treat today because I've got probably my oldest friend. Maybe I ought to say my longest friend.
Yes.
Jan van Oosten is with us today, and he is a Renaissance man in a lot of ways. A lot of really interesting things are going on, but we became friends in maybe late elementary school, but junior high. Went to the same church, had some great adventures together. We were in each other's weddings. We were college roommates for a period of time. We're now co-pastors at People's Church together. Our history goes back a long, long time, and we're not going to say how old we are, but you are older than I am. But
that's right.
One of the amazing things about Jan is that he's been involved in radio for many, many years because he's the founder of Valley Public Radio. Back when it was literally in its infancy, and started, Jan, where did it start?
It actually started in our living room.
I love it.
As a crazy idea. And we knew absolutely nothing about radio.
What a good way to start.
But we were young and didn't know what we're doing, and so that helped a lot.
Well, I know Richard Mays was one of the guys. Who were some of the other folks involved with you at that time?
Vaughn Johnson was the other guy. He was the guy that actually had radio experience.
Okay.
And a degree in it. Yeah. And so that was our secret weapon. But Richard and I, were kind of like the dreamers, and we're just willing to make it happen, whatever it took.
Yeah, I love it. And your first studio, other than the living room, was the old Kmj Studios.
Yes.
That McClatchy owned.
Yeah, they donated it to us, and we renovated it, and it was a first-class studio. It was absolutely fantastic for us. So
they used to do a lot of live events there.
They did.
Yeah,
they did.
That's pretty amazing.
In fact, if I could just, one little plug about that.
Sure.
Is that we were the first national public radio station to do a simulcast with a television station.
Wow.
And so that was done in our studio there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I remember the work that it took to get that thing up and running. And, we just walk into a studio now and we're doing our thing. So, it's really good.
It's helpful to be young and stupid.
I hear you. Well, you and I have been friends since, middle school or even earlier than that. Our dads knew each other and families knew each other. You lived near Yosemite Middle School.
Yes.
I remember those days. And it was Yosemite Junior High in those days.
Yeah.
But you had kids that would walk across from the campus down your street, and you had a very interesting little friend there. Yes. You had a monkey.
Yeah.
Tell me about the monkey.
Well, you're probably thinking of this little monkey, but it was actually a red patus. And they're thin, but they can be as large as a chimpanzee.
Wow.
So we had him in our backyard. He had the worst attitude in the world. But I would walk him with this little harness on him. And I had him on the front yard one day. This kid was coming from Yosemite. And the kid looks at he thought it was a dog. He says, "That is an ugly dog." And then all of a sudden, this monkey jumped up on our little white picket fence and snarled at him. And the kid about died. And I just simply said to him, "Well, he is not a dog. It's a monkey."
And he was quite a monkey. He was quite a monkey.
The kid just scurried down the road real fast.
Yeah, I guess. Well, and we were in each other's weddings as well.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting time. You and my brother, who also were roommates,
Yep.
You rode your motorcycles in a Route 66.
Mm-hmm.
That was the old route that Fonda took.
Yeah.
You know, and you went all the way across from Fresno to Pennsylvania to our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand there are several states that you can't go back to.
That's for sure. One is New York City, because we got a ticket there and never paid it. Oh boy, I shouldn't say that, should I?
But it was a really interesting time because a lot of adventures during those days, and it seems like it was a safer time to do that kind of thing than now. But I remember, folks, Jan has always been a risk taker out front, doing a lot of things. Because you also started a church. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But one of the interesting things you did, you and my brother would get behind these 18-wheelers and get up really close so the wind wouldn't hit you when you're riding your bikes. The trouble is, if they stop, you were in trouble.
Well, again, it's helpful to be young and stupid. Do not do this. If you're listening, do not do this. We literally would get within 3 feet of a semi.
Wow.
And catch the draft. And boy, I mean, you hardly used any gas at all. So, that's what we're doing.
I love it. I love it. We had some interesting roommates as well over the years. We won't talk about them today, but we did have some. And one of the roommates was the only guy that really had money.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason he was our roommate. But, anyway, you're doing some interesting things now, but you started New Covenant Community Church. You're now a pastor at People's Church, but you started New Covenant. You and I were there at the same time. Tell me a little bit about what got you into that whole adventure.
Well, I had been on staff for 8 years with Buf Carricker at Northwest Church, and that was a phenomenal, just an incredible experience because of the 1980s. That was a great time of church growth and so forth. And I had not been to seminary. I went to seminary while I was at Northwest and ended up kind of just pitching this idea of maybe doing church planting. And so in conjunction with Northwest and the Baptist General Conference, that was our denomination, we launched New Covenant. Again, I knew nothing about what I was doing.
So you've done 2 major projects, not knowing anything but trust in the Lord.
Right. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I learned as I went.
Yep.
We stumbled across Rick Warren and his ministry down at Saddleback. So we would go down there, and I actually met with him several times, and he was just an incredible time learning from what they were doing.
This was 1987.
That's when we started.
Yeah, when we started. And I was going to, Dot and I and my wife were going to a different church at the time, and you said, hey, how about coming to our first service, just, moral support and see what's going on. And 30 years later, we were there for that entire 30-year time.
Yeah.
It was fantastic because the Lord did some really good things during those 30 years, and it was amazing what was going on. And it became one of the bigger churches in Fresno.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well,
I'll remind you of one incident. I just told some people about this last night. We were running about 200 people, and we were at Kasner Intermediate School auditorium, and we did our first children's program. Now, this was, it was as cheesy as all get out. But our attendance that day, and I still remember today, went from 200 to 622 people. Wow. And I remember turning right to you and saying, we're going to do this a lot more.
I remember that. And over the years, meeting at Kasner, we had some interesting things happen. I think you were preaching on sexuality one time, and a fire alarm went off, a bird got in the building. I mean, it was always interesting.
It was always interesting. Yeah.
And then you had we had some really great outdoor services. Bubba Paris from the San Francisco 49ers, an all-star, was their preacher and did a great job. And we had some really interesting folks come in during those times. And it was a time for people in the community to get to know who New Covenant was. And we did it through your foresight of having key people come into the community, and people who came to hear them liked what they heard there, but liked what they saw with New Cov. And all of a sudden the church, like you said, is growing, and it's bigger and bigger. And it was a great experience.
It was. It was a tremendous experience.
Yeah, wonderful.
That led to me working with our denomination to help other church planters.
Yeah.
And then eventually in Europe. And so that was a tremendous experience too.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Well, folks, we're running. I can't believe how fast this time goes. This is our first segment. It's almost over. But I've got Jan van Oosten with us today. We're talking about a lot of different things because he and I are long time friends, college roommates, co-pastors together now. Our wives know each other and have known each other for many years. We're 50-year plus friends. Anyway, you're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We'll be right back with Jan van Oosten.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Jose, I'm going to say something real quick to our guest outside. Jan, if you'd catch that door, get your headphones are off. Look you. Yeah, just let him. Listen, a lot of good things are taking place in Fresno. Jan van Oosten is one of them, and we're going to continue our conversation for our radio folks as well. Thanks for being here.
People on the best talk in town.
Hey, you're where civility is always in style, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. Jan, we've been having a good conversation, just reminiscing about our pasts, which are intertwined in lots of different ways, and now one other quick thing, your father worked at Gottschalk's, if I remember, and he was one of those fun people that I loved being around, and we obviously were at Glad Tidings Assembly together during those years, and I think he was on the board and Dad was on the board, and they were friends, and lots of good things. But I was at your house a lot of times over the years, and
I lived at your house.
Yes. And it's interesting, you were on the national championship tennis team at Fresno State Division II back in those days, in the late 60s and early 70s, and that's the 19s, not the 18s, but
seems like it.
Yeah, but you've always been involved in tennis, and you had a really good game. But what are you doing with tennis now?
Well, I have 3 granddaughters, and you can imagine I have sort of led them into tennis, and they're competitive players now. The youngest one hasn't competed yet, but she will be.
She's learning.
She's got the big left hand, and she's going to be a powerhouse.
Yeah.
But the other 2 have played competitive, won a number of tournaments, and now the older one had played this year at Fresno Christian.
And did very well.
She went undefeated without losing a set until she got to the regional finals, and that's really. She made it to the quarterfinals of the CIF Central California tournament, lost to the number 1 seed.
Wow!
So she was Rookie of the Year. Can I brag just a little bit?
Yes, you can. Yes, what's her name?
Her name was Amaya.
Amaya, yes, and what a talent she is. And it's interesting, when I first really got a chance to know her and think, she's pretty shy.
Yeah, she is.
And yet when she gets on a tennis court, she is a go-getter.
She likes to win.
Yes, she does. She's very competitive.
And her little sister, just 1 year younger, is going to be with us next year.
Oh.
And so, interesting, we have, when I say we, that's a Fresno Christian's tennis team.
Yes.
It was at Division 5 and doing very well. And this last year, they moved them to Division 3. But there's a set of twins, and my 2 girls will be on the team together. And they're part of the 559 tennis clinic at Copper River Country Club.
Oh, yeah, which has a great course setup.
Yes.
Court setup.
Coach Poocher there,
Yeah.
Sadaf, she's fantastic. We are so lucky to have her in our community, and
Wow.
she just has been training these girls and boys. She has some of the best tennis players in her program, and so those 4 will be on the team this year.
It's going to be tough.
So we're looking for maybe going even to a higher division.
When you said she was undefeated, it made me think about you. You were undefeated. Maybe not quite undefeated, but
undefeated.
you were on the national championship team. But you're doing something else with Fresno Christian that's really neat. You're doing some renovation in a project.
Well, they have 4 courts. They really need 6.
Yep.
And so I've been working toward that.
Yep.
And there's a few more things logistically that have to be done, and then hopefully we'll be able to raise some money for that. And
so it's a goal that you have in mind. And
we hope by the next season for the girls that we'll have those courts expanded and completed.
Boy, that'd be fantastic. You know, and when you've got a team like you have, which is a top level team, it's nice to have facilities that match the level of the competitor.
It is.
You know, it really makes a lot of difference. So that's really good. Well, you and I have been together, as I've mentioned, folks, for a long, long time. Jan did the Easy Rider trip across country with my brother on motorcycles to my wedding with Dot. And we just have had quite an adventure over the years. But we've talked a lot because you're doing something unique now. You're one of the pastors at People's Church, as I am. But tell a little bit about what you're doing there.
Well, I quote, am part-time. You know how that goes in church ministry.
Yes.
But I oversee the men's ministry and what's called the Assimilation Ministry. That's where you help the newcomers of the church, feel welcomed and involved in the life of the church. And we love doing that. My daughter Beth is my assistant. And so we're in a great period, I think, coming back from COVID with our new expanded facility.
Right.
God's just doing a lot of great things.
Well, and a quick plug, your men's breakfast coming up on March 12th at 8 o'clock, and any man in the community's invited, come and join us. You're going to have a couple of guests. Who are those guests?
This is going to be like a train wreck. It's going to be amazing.
You don't want to miss it.
Don't want to miss it. Larry Powell and Alan Autry are going to be there together. Amazing.
We're going to reprise maybe our radio show. We'll have some fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're going to have Bubba and the Reverend Superintendent. So we'll have a good time with that. Looking forward to being there with you. And that men's program is really growing.
It is.
Yeah. You've got some. So if you're a man in the community and you would really like to be among some other men, go through the challenges, talk about the challenges that we face and all the things that are going on in our communities. Boy, we'd love to have you join us.
There's something really special, in my opinion, of men together where they can share their real lives and their feelings about things and their challenges and pray with each other and that sort of thing. It's just powerful. It really is.
It is. Well, along with, your men's ministry that you're doing and also with the Assimilation, and let me tell you, when you walk into People's Church, you're going to be greeted by a lot of different people. You're going to be greeted well. We're glad to have you. But you also have a VIP room. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a place where after the service, the newcomers can come and get information, get a gift from the church and that sort of thing. And I'll tell you what, it has been amazing since we built our new VIP room.
Brand new lobby and VIP room attached to it.
People are just really availing themselves of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are coming back from COVID, so to speak, back to church.
Yes.
And maybe exploring other churches they hadn't. And our facility, when you put, if you've ever seen it, it has this giant sign that says kids. And so a lot of people are coming because it has a tremendous kids ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you also offer another series for new Christians.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there. And we're going to talk a little more theology in just a few minutes, but I'd like you to know some of the things that Jan's involved with.
We do what's called the Engage classes. It helps people get engaged in the life of the church when they're ready to say, okay, this might be my church.
Yep.
But we also teach them some basic things on theologically, biblically. We talk about how the Bible was put together, how to use the Bible and so forth. And who is God anyway? And what's this thing about Jesus Christ? We go through the basics of the faith.
Yep.
And then we lead into actually a membership portion of that where they can become members of the church. And then also, if they are ready to do this, to get engaged in the life of the church with a ministry.
Yeah. How do they get into the class?
Well, it's during the second service at 11 o'clock, and we rotate it. It's coming actually this Sunday. We're coming back to our next series of the.
So you're starting it again.
Yep.
And can anybody join?
Anybody can join.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Come and well, you used to do and I don't know if you're still doing Christianity 101.
We incorporated that material into Engage.
Yeah,
yes.
It's really good because what are you finding? Because I'm finding a lot of folks don't know much about the Bible.
They don't.
Yeah.
And that's why we actually teach about the Bible.
Yeah.
And give them some tools that they can use to understand the Bible and to use the Bible, actually, because some people are just not, what do I do with this thing? How do I read it? And we give them hints, and we take questions and guide them as best we possibly can.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, on our smartphones, we've got the U version of the Bible, which is fantastic because it has not only 26, 27 versions of the Bible that you can actually put side by side and review them. And I love the King James because I love the poetry of the King James.
Me too.
I love the NIV, and the U version has a spoken part of that. You can just listen to it. So if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it.
That's great tool.
It is. And then the Message Bible, I like it as well because it gives kind of a real world kind of feel.
Yeah. So
that if you're not into theological terms, you can understand what it's talking about.
Right.
And I really like what happens with that. So there are a lot of ways. It's interesting when we look back in history. I think most people in America grew up with a sense of the Bible.
Yes.
Often went to church, sometimes just because it was the social thing to do. But they had Bible school, they had studies, Sunday school classes. We're finding more and more folks are not doing that. And then COVID was an interesting thing for us because, and every church in America, because a lot of them stopped holding services at the church, but we went to streaming.
Yep.
Now, what's been your experience, with the streaming side of things?
Well, I'm old school. I just have to admit I'm old school. I think you cannot beat the gathering of the body of Christ together for encouragement. And, there's just all these promises in the Bible that when we are together, Christ is in our midst. Not that I'm against using streaming. I think that's a great tool for the church. But I don't see that. In fact, I encourage people, don't use that as a supplement for the church. Use it as something that maybe you tap into when you need to.
Right.
But get yourself to church because God's going to do things in your life when you come to church. It's just a matter of it's reality.
And a lot of folks are now, COVID has caused them to get into the pajamas and coffee mode and don't have to get dressed on Sunday mornings. But we can offer that same thing. We would say, don't wear the pajamas, but we got the coffee.
Yeah.
So,
or wear your slippers. It's okay.
Yeah. We'd love to have you come and join us, But you're right. There's something unique that happens in the body of Christ when we get together with other believers and we talk about issues that affect us all. And how are you handling it? What's going on here? Yeah. I've had this happen in my life, those kinds of things. And, hard to believe, Jan, we're at the end of our second segment, but folks, you're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style, and we're going to be right back with Jan Van Oosten.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. On the best talk in town.
Well, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're in our studio here. We have a couple of big screen TVs that give us the latest news. So if something breaks, we can share that with you. And on the Alan Autry Show and also Guillermo Moreno shows, 4 o'clock, Alan at 12, you can catch a lot of really good, interesting things, and they'll keep you right up to speed on what's going on. And KXEX 1550 AM got a lot of good things taking place, a lot of people that you want to hear because they're telling you some really important things. Also, remember, we talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And you can also hear Good News with Larry Powell every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So if you want to be boosted for the day, listen to a good news story. We're back with Jan Van Oosten, and Jan, you started a blog quite a few years ago, in fact, called Theology for Dummies.
Yep.
I know it took off in a way you had not anticipated, but
Totally.
and folks, let me share with you, Jan is really a theologian. He's a pastor, has a pastor's heart, but he's a theologian. He clearly understands the Bible, has spent hours and days and years and a lot of time studying the scripture and getting a sense of what it is, and then finding a way to deliver it to people who don't know what it's about. Thus, Theology for Dummies. And a blog started. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was just, again, another one of my whims, and I had no idea that it was going to become as popular as it became. And we had people that I'd write a concept down, a theological concept, a biblical concept, and then people would just start making comments, like perhaps a lot of people do today on Facebook. And
when did you start it?
This was in, I think, 2005.
Boy, this was really early in the blogosphere.
It was. And I think partially that was one of the reasons it became so popular. I was in so early on this hosting site. And we would have just incredible people from England, Australia, all over Africa and so forth. They'd be posting from every persuasion you can imagine, every denomination, atheists, agnostics. Yep. And it was, boy, you talk about a learning curve. I had to respond.
Sure. I
had to learn a lot about different religions, how to talk to people about the Lord, how to talk about these issues.
Sure.
And it was very, very helpful to me, if anything else. But I had a bout of cancer, and so I stopped doing the blog for a while, and then I just didn't go back to it.
Well, it was pretty amazing because you ended up actually developing some relationships with folks around the world with the blog.
Yes.
And, it is interesting. There are a lot of people who really want to know about theology.
Yeah.
And especially in the day in which we live today, it's just so many things are uncertain, unsettled. What is it about people that drives them to want to know more, want to maybe get to church, want to know something on a level that's understandable?
Yeah.
What's going on that's causing that?
Well, oftentimes it is a crisis that's come into a person's life.
Yep. Maybe
a marriage that's fallen apart, or they've lost a loved one, or whatever. And it's sort of a crisis of, what do I do about this? And they maybe even think about the ultimate questions of life. Is there life after death?
Sure.
How do I get there? What do I do? And so that tends to, you have a built-in audience, so to speak, almost in everyone's life, because they face that moment of destiny or of self-evaluation. And you have to be able to speak into that.
Yes.
And I think that's where when I went to seminary, I started out as an Old Testament major, and I discovered just by taking classes, I had this gifting in theology. And so I changed from concentrated in Old Testament into theology. And it's really been fantastic for me. And I enjoy it a lot. And I found that the more I kind of get a grasp of this whole big picture of theology, and you can do this forever, but if you have a heart for people, it can help you communicate with them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe pick one of the big issues in theology right now. What is the world talking about? And then what can we expect, to come out of some of these discussions and things?
I think obviously with the Ukraine and what's happening there, and the specter of, and we don't even want to talk about it per se, is that the possibility of a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
One of the big pictures is, well, what's God doing, and how is He in the midst of this, and is this the end times?
Right.
Those are always big questions that people have whenever you face a crisis. Back in 9/11, a lot of people faced that sort of thing. The ultimate big questions about life and history.
Those are seminal moments in our time.
And the thing about Christianity is that the God of Judaism and Christianity is the God of history, far more than any other world religion, and that He exposes Himself and His reality of who He is and His character through history. And you actually come to understand more about Him through history, but you also have to understand God to understand history. And that's just this concept embedded into the world of Christianity that, leads to these ultimate questions about life and purpose and what's going on with my government, and those kinds of things.
Right. Christians have, we're on the spectrum too. We're from the left to the right.
Yeah.
You've got the social issues dominated side. You've got the right side. I mean, Americans seem to live very well in the middle.
Yeah.
In the middle of the road. We like to go a little bit left on some issues, a little bit right on other issues. What are you maybe prognosticating on what's going on right now? We're in the middle of midterms are coming up. You got election. Biden's been in office. Just did the State of the Union address. Didn't get very high marks from folks on it. I think he failed to talk to the American heart.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit tone deaf on that. But what's your take on where we are with that right now, with the presidency and all that stuff, as far as Christians are concerned?
Well, from a Christian, what I would say about it is this: that when I was a kid, when you and I were kids, I remember I had two aunts, and they were like Marge Simpson's sisters. You remember them?
Oh yeah,
their gravelly voice, because they and my aunts were smokers. They were chain smokers. They lived in Reno, Nevada, And both of them were just, I don't go to church, and you guys are just religious, and that's okay, and I'm going to go to hell, and I don't care, but I'll have lots of my friends there. But the thing was, they understood they were sinners in relationship to what we believed, and they were, maybe not fully okay with that,
right?
But that was the world we live in. It was a Christianized world,
right?
That world we no longer live in, and a lot of people are sort of turning their turrets and looking at the church and say, well, maybe you're the problem. And that's a vast difference between when I was a kid and now. And so Christianity has to be able to make its case from a different perspective. There are things when I was a kid, it was just a foregone conclusion. If you're going to be a Christian, you're going to live a moral life. Okay.
Yeah. Ethics and moral values were part of it.
Yeah. Now the moral precepts of Christianity are under question. And so I think increasingly what is happening politically is that the moral issues are becoming front and center. And the church has to be able to speak effectively in that context, not being seen as judgmental, but being seen as clear.
Yes.
Right? I encourage pastors to be clear on these issues because I think people want to know.
They really do have a curiosity about it. I'm seeing, and maybe you are too, I'm seeing a return to an interest in biblical things.
Yeah.
Even at a time when it has become less popular in a sense. But boy, South America is growing, like crazy. There are a lot of places, Africa, across the world, that the interest in the Bible and things like that is just skyrocketing.
Yeah, it is.
In fact, we have had such an open time with the Bible in America that we've almost forgotten the value of it, and what we needed to learn. What's your take on what's taking place like in South America, and why is that all happening?
Samuel Huntington wrote a book, maybe you're familiar with this, in the late 90s called Clash of Civilizations.
Oh, yeah.
And his case is very different than what oftentimes is in the secular mindset, and that was that globalism was going to, basically democracy and that sort of thing was going to spread around the world. Samuel Huntington was the opposite. He said, no, we are headed into a more religious age than ever.
Wow.
Islam, Hinduism, Orthodox Christianity, Catholic Christianity, so forth, we're actually going to become stronger. And that's very true with evangelical Christianity too. Maybe not in the United States, but around the world.
Around the world, yeah. Are we seeing more towers being built, silos, so to speak, between religions? I noticed that it seems harder the more we call for universality, the more we're finding the definitions in each are I'm right, you're wrong, very, very hard in a way that wants to eliminate other religions and things. Are we seeing that? I
think that's true. I think that there's a good aspect of that for those who are part of that faith community, because now they know where they stand. They know there is a boundary. and that where that boundary is. And that's
Yes.
not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean you have to be uncivil, though. It doesn't mean that you have to be antagonistic towards other people.
Right. Well, and I often talk about how in the world do we get to know someone if we don't talk to them about where they're at? You know, you're listening to Powell to the People. We've got Jan Van Oosten with us today, and what a great discussion. I can't believe 3 of our segments are gone. We're going to be back with our last and final one here in just a few minutes. Powell to the People, where civility is always in style.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. On the best talk in town.
Hey, well, welcome back to our final segment today. We've been with Jan Van Oosten. We're going to continue that conversation. You know, this is a place where civility is always in style. We want to be able to talk to each other, because if you don't talk to each other, there's no way to get along. And I start creating demons in my own minds about you if I don't know more about you. You know, that kind of thing. As we're talking about religions. We're talking a little bit about silos and, you know, some of the things that are happening. I really encourage people to talk to your neighbors, talk to your fellow coworkers, you know, on the job, spend time getting to know each other. I'm not afraid that the gospel will be lost when we do that, because the power of the gospel is there and it changes lives.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we're going to see some really good things happen during this time. What's happening with church attendance, though, generally here in America?
Well, what I understand, of course, COVID has had a big impact. And people, I think, are now beginning to come back to the church. That's certainly true at People's Church.
Yep.
Our attendance is rising very well.
And an interesting thing we've noticed is that it's not just the same people coming back.
It's not.
No, it's a lot of new folks that have not, that as far as I'm concerned, were not churched before, you know.
The attendance is outstripping the volunteerism.
Oh,
that's the big challenge.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because I think a lot of the people that were involved in ministry maybe have not come back yet. And we have an influx of a lot of new people that maybe have never done anything in the church before.
Yeah. So what do I do?
Yeah.
Which is another good reason to take that Engage class and learn out what's it like being in a big church like this? Can a big church have a small feeling for me so that I have a community of members of faith that I can talk to on a regular basis and get to know people? Or do I just get lost in this jungle?
Yeah.
You know? But I think it's very open for us. Yeah.
I was just talking to one of our key children's ministry workers, and he was talking about how the same thing they've experienced in their ministry. They have lots of kids coming now, but they have, you know, a very thin leadership and volunteerism that they're working to try and expand.
Good. Well, I know you read such things as Barna and some of the reports that are coming out, and they really go contrary to what the popular myth is, that churches are dying.
Yeah.
Actually, evangelical churches are growing like crazy, and a lot of really good things are happening there. What's your take on that?
Well, contrary to what a lot of people think, there was this myth, in my opinion, that we were just going to become this secular place. Everybody's going to be secular, and church is going to be something of the dustbin of history. And that's really not true. That's not actually happening. That, you know, they talk about the nuns.
Yes.
Those people who register as, well, I don't have any religion. Basically, what most of that is.
And that's NONES, not NUN.
Yeah.
Yes.
That really refers, in my opinion, what I've read on it, is to people that actually have some sort of spiritual sense in them. Maybe they just watch on television some guy or evangelist or something like that. But they are not de-Christianized. They're not agnostic. They're not atheists.
Right.
In reality, the percentage of atheists and agnostics has not risen significantly in the United States.
And that's really, I think, a critical barometer for us.
It is
that don't buy the silliness that people don't need God.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a greater need during today's age than any other time. But, you know, one of the challenges, and you and I are both pastors, is that Barna had a statistic: 38% of the pastors were leaving the pastorate. What's your take on that? What's going on there?
It's a very difficult profession.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, what do you do besides just coming on Sunday and preaching, Pastor? But, it's, especially if you're in a smaller church setting where you don't have other pastors and other support systems, it can be a meat grinder on individuals and their families because you're living in a fishbowl all the time. It's very difficult because of people talking and saying this and that. And
Yep.
I always tell pastors, there's always going to be about 15% of the congregation that is crabbing about something, That's just life. That's the way people are.
Yep.
And oftentimes they're saying hard things about their pastor and the family, or, what hurts the most is when they're talking about your kids or you're talking about
exactly.
your wife. And so guys just I can't handle this. And they move out.
It is a tough profession.
Yeah.
Dot's father, S.W. Brewer, was in the pastorate for 50 plus years, and in fact helped in Springfield, Missouri, helped to build a college back there and built the dorms, and but it was a tough challenge, and we're at least in regular churches, medium to large size churches are compensated financially pretty well. People really do take care of us and things, but smaller churches where you're a vocational pastor is so much more challenging.
Very hard.
You're trying to work at the same time that you're trying to encourage people. You're leading people through family crisis in the hospital, and then you had this whole COVID thing. You couldn't get in, to even visit them, and so that was really, really tough.
And nothing ever happens conveniently in the church. Somebody's going to die. There's going to be a crisis. And those never seem to happen on, when you're there at the office and you're all systems. It's always, late at night.
How about midnight? You get a call. And we have a thing called Pastor on Call. And Pastor on Call gets those emergency calls. Fortunately, we have, 12 pastors that are at People's Church, so we kind of distribute that a little bit.
Exactly. And so it makes a big difference. You can have a little bit more of a private life. Sometimes these guys in small churches, they just have to give it all up to the Lord. Yeah,
amazing what they do. I just am encouraged by them every time I talk to them and see them, So how are our churchgoers feeling about worship in the church now? Because, we've got this interesting minor conflict, but a conflict of new music versus gospel music and old music and things, and we're seeing a lot of folks that are listening to the new music because it's great music, but they're not singing it.
Yeah,
they're standing while it's being done, but it seems like there's more performance music than participatory music in church. What's happening with this?
It's called the worship wars, Larry.
I hear you.
One of the big battlegrounds within the churches, because we were talking subjective. What touches my heart may not touch your heart. And so I always want it to be for me, but sometimes Christians have to learn to give up their own needs for someone else.
Right.
But it's a legitimate thing. You want to go to church and you want to worship the Lord in such a way that it touches your heart. And I certainly understand that. And we want that as much as possible. And we are blessed at People's Church to have the opportunity to do a kind of a contemporary service as well as a classic service.
Yeah, that's really good.
It is.
Well, we're down to about 3 minutes left, but I wanted to ask one of those questions that's increasingly important in the church world, and that's multiracial, interracial relationships and things. We've got a lot of challenges in that arena. Black Lives Matter, and you get such polarizing messages on all sides of things. Christians, if you follow the Bible, you are to love everyone as yourself.
Right.
And if you do that, you don't have to worry about race, creed, background, anything else.
Yeah.
I'm loving you more than I love myself, or at least as much as I love myself. Where are we going with this whole thing? Are we going to come out of it well, or what's going to determine that?
I have two thoughts on that, Larry. One is just from a personal perspective, and that is that I bought into, when I was a kid, the Martin Luther King concept of evaluating people not so much obviously on their skin color, but their character.
Content or their character.
And I think he was a Baptist pastor.
Yep.
And that's a biblical concept. It really is. and we have to treat people. We don't treat them just at face value. You look at the guy and you think, wow, I wouldn't dress like that, and look at that. And so I'm judging people from that perspective. I have to wait and allow the Holy Spirit to prompt me to maybe love this person and really get to know him first before I make any harsh judgments about him.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Boy, that is. But my other concept is this: in California, and I was just telling this to another person the other day. People may not realize this, but People's is probably the largest Hispanic church. I'm not even talking about our Spanish language service.
Right.
Largest Hispanic church in Fresno, because of second and third generation Hispanics, Spanish speaking, or people coming from a Spanish background that are here, and they've assimilated, and they come to the regular service, so to speak.
Yeah.
And enjoy it.
Yeah.
And Anglos like me need to look around and say, wow, it's changing, but these people love the Lord just like me, and isn't it awesome?
That is fantastic. And every Monday our staff gets together to pray over prayer requests. Yep. And I would say 80% of the prayer requests are Hispanic families, which is really fantastic.
It is.
Seeing that integration that's taking place. So we really are encouraging people, find a church home, and don't just sit and soak, find something to do. And People's Church would welcome you and love to have folks come in. Well, we're down to 50 seconds. Give me a 20-minute close. What's your thoughts?
Well, you just said sit and soak. I want to really encourage that idea, because I always just say, if you sit and soak, you're going to go south. That's really true. Get engaged. If you're wondering what this is all about, what is Christianity? We are a great place to come and explore that, and most churches are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, folks, you've been listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style, and my guest today has been my friend, Jan Van Oosten, who's a pastor at People's Church, a theologian, a great guy. Come and join us at People's Church. I think you'd really be happy you did. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Facebook friends. Really appreciate you being here. A lot of good things taking place.